Welcome to Talk Safety to Me, a podcast from the North Dakota Safety Council, where we discuss safety at home, in the workplace, and in our communities. Recorded at the Radio Access Studio in Bismarck, North Dakota, you can find Talk Safety to Me on 102.5 FM or online at radioaccess.org or ndsc.org.
Hello, I'm Chuck Claremont, the North Dakota Safety Council's Executive Director, and more relevant to you, the host of the Talk Safety to Me podcast, the North Dakota Safety Council's podcast. Our Senior Marketing and Communications Manager, Tia Streeter. She's producing, and she's not sitting alongside me, but you're in another place. You're right next to me if you're watching the video. I guess I'm on the right side, Tia's on the left, Jimmy's in the middle, but I don't know if that's how people see it. But at any rate, today we're talking to Jimmy Yeary. Jimmy's a singer-songwriter, a storyteller, and he's a speaker. We have so many cool things to talk about today, and including the most important thing, why we're talking to you. And you're this Grammy award-winning Nashville guy. We're going to talk about your background. I mean, to people at home, Jimmy, you've been a part of a group called Shenandoah, the Isaacs. You got all these vast number of awards for songwriting that we'll be touching on. But for us, people are thinking music, safety, what's going on? What's the connection here? And why this podcast? And so for us, we are really excited to announce that Jimmy is going to be the keynote speaker for our February 2025 annual convention, which is our 52nd annual North Dakota Safety and Health Conference. It's going to be in Bismarck, North Dakota on February 24th to the 27th. And Jimmy's actually going to be speaking on the 25th, which is our opening day. So first of all, Jimmy, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate you taking the time down in, I think you're in Nashville, correct?
Yes, thank you all for having me very much. Tia, Chuck, appreciate you so much. Yeah, I'm north of Nashville, about 30 minutes. My publishing company is in Nashville, but we live in a place called Hendersonville, so it's a little bit more country away from all the population that can drive a person
crazy. It's interesting you say that, kind of taking it. My son just drove down to Union City, Tennessee to pick up a chocolate lab puppy.
Okay.
So it's just, I think it's northwest of Nashville, in the corner, kind of northwest corner.
Yeah. And if you drive through Nashville, it's growing and has grown, and it is growing at a rate that makes you want it to stop. Enough's enough. But yeah, I still love it there. I go there as much as I can to write and produce and create songs and whatnot. So yeah, I still love it. Love it here.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And, for us, as we said, you're our opening day keynote. That's going to be on Tuesday, February 25th. But, before we get too deep in your music background, which there's a lot to talk about there, let's talk about your life as a public speaker. How did you get to that point? How did you go from this transition of singer, songwriter, now public speaker?
Yeah, I would do songwriting. These shows, once you have accumulated some hits, well, then you become a little bit of a hot commodity as far as people wanting you to come to give them the Bluebird experience, that story behind the song experience. So I've always had these principles that I've lived by, that I write by, that I communicate by, and form relationships by. And so every time I would do these shows, I would set up my songs naturally with these principles, because I have this passion I always have of wanting to have something of some value to give to other people. And the value that I have, I really enjoy giving that to people to help them understand ultimately the power of their story. We all have a unique story. It's nobody's story is like anybody else's story. And so helping people understand that if they'll just tell their story, it's more powerful than me telling their story. And it's significant. And the power behind that is what I love to talk about. So I would set up my songs like that. And then to land this plane about how all that started, I got a buddy named Andy Andrews, who's a prominent speaker and a prominent author. So millions of books. And he and I became dear friends. And he asked me one day, do you have you ever thought about speaking? You're such a good speaker, and you have these principles in place. And I said, well, I'm ready to go. I've been working on this for a couple years, and I could go and do an event right now. And he said, well, I have one for you in a couple weeks. And no more questions were asked. I showed up, I did the talk, and I felt extraordinarily comfortable, but yet nervous, but comfortable, and found out that I had something to give other people. And it just kind of snowballed from there. And then bureaus started reaching out, and it has grown into something I do full time today, and that I love so much.
Yeah, I know as we're doing research, and we spend a lot of time trying to look for our keynotes, because we have 3 keynotes usually for our conference. And while that's not the main draw for people, having keynotes that can connect with people, that can inspire, that can just raise this awareness of safety and do it in a way that's not so technical. Yes. We were doing research, and I think what connected me, and I know Tia and Kristen Wilson helps us with this a little bit too, is you talk about you're an advocate for emotion, and one of the quotes or things as I'm looking at it talked about emotional awareness, greater understanding of people, shared experiences. Mm-hmm. That's what kind of connected us a little bit, saying, all right, how can we tie this whole thing into safety? And what does all that mean to you? And how do you take and incorporate all this emotion and awareness and everything else? How do you incorporate that into your speaking?
Well, I have to communicate information to people all the time, in and out of my publishing companies, the record labels, the clients, the artists, co-writers. I often say people don't follow those they necessarily agree with. They follow those they trust. And so your story is capable of making connections to form friendships, whether you realize it or not. And that friendship creates a trust. And so you're able to communicate safety information. You're able to communicate anything. And it doesn't, you don't have to walk on eggshells. You become friends. You become connected. Tim McGraw does not reach out to me. I'm working on his new record with him right now, and have had hits with him, and many songs recorded by him. But Tim doesn't reach out to me because he wants a song about jumping in a truck and ended up in a hayfield with a girl in cutoffs. He calls me for the stories. I'm known as a storyteller. And so I love to talk about how people can, tell their story and to connect with others. And so to be able to communicate that to other people, people listen with different ears, and to make those, to give advice, to give roadmaps to how to be most efficient and safe, can be done, I think, most effectively when someone can be vulnerable, can be authentic. Yeah. And that happens with your story. And again, it's fun to talk about and to talk to audiences about how to effectively tell that story. I make that very clear on how to do that, and give examples of my goofy stories and how I do it with the Kenny Chesneys of the world and the Tim McGraws of the world, and to try to lay it out there and make it clear so people can leave an event and know how to do that themselves.
Yeah, I know part of I love music, and part of the thing I like a lot about music is when the singers talk about it. They talk about their music. There's that. I think that's such a huge part to connect people with. I don't just listen to your song, but I listen to the whys and the whats and those pieces. And from your perspective, you're writing songs for these people, and they must take it, even though it's your connection and your songs, it must relate to them in a huge factor for them to be able to take it. Tim McGraw specifically, the I Called Mama, one of your number one hits. I know. Yeah. I was reading some stuff from him specifically talking about that, but that has to be unique to be able to take your perspective and your songs and them to say, okay, I feel the same thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, I'm not trying to tell Tim McGraw's story. I'm only telling my story. That was, I Called Mama, excuse me, was a true story in my life. I got a call from a friend that I was downtown riding, and he told me about a buddy of ours that had passed away suddenly. And it was a gut punch to me. And I left that right, got in my truck, drove down to the Old Hickory Lake next to where we live. And I grabbed my guitar in the back, and I leaned on the front of the truck. And I just kind of was singing, because I like to just sing. And I was just coming up with a melody. And I was just thinking about, I was just doing what I enjoyed in the moment. And I actually picked up a Slim Jim and a Coke and had a snack. And I called my mom. And I didn't tell her why I was calling her. And it made me realize the important things in life and how you can lose them in a moment. And so it created a great deal of gratitude in me in that moment. And I wanted to put that on to pen and paper. And so I told my story, and Tim saw his story. And that's what's amazing about our stories. If we'll just tell our story, other people start seeing their story. Their stories are different, but their emotions are the same. We all experience the same emotions. So that's what's powerful about that.
Yeah, I love it. So let's get into the music then that we just kind of talked about a little bit there. You're in the business of music for most of your adult life. Even your youth, it sounds like you were into it from the minute you started singing and traveling with your family. But you got a really early start with your families. Talk to us and tell us about your upbringing from the cornfield community of Hillsboro, Ohio, to Virginia, to Nashville, Tennessee.
Oh, goodness. I often say I was raised about 40 minutes east of Cincinnati, where there's nothing but cornfields and guilt. Because there was a church every 150 yards, and I feel like I was in every one of them. We were raised singing Southern gospel music, and so it was. I wouldn't trade anything for it. It was just so it was a Christian kind of mountainy bluegrass style of music, and that's really where I first met my now wife, Sonia Isaacs, with the Isaacs, who many people are familiar with. She's an Opry member, but we, when I was around 14 and she was about 10, we played a little television station in Bettyville, Kentucky, because we moved there from Southeast Ohio, and periodically would sing for about a year and a half until the evangelist ran away with the cameraman's wife one day, and everything disbanded, and I didn't see Sonia again until I had eventually moved to Nashville. But I moved to Nashville in '94. If I knew then what I know now, I probably wouldn't have moved here. The odds of doing something in the music business are exponentially harder than I ever could have dreamed and knew. Thank goodness, again, or I wouldn't have come. But but yeah, I had such a love for music, such a love for writing. There was a little bit of there was some dysfunction and some when I was young, and so I would retreat away from that. I'll call it negativity, and I would steal away and grab my guitar and just sort of find peace in coming up with stories and ultimately telling my story. And I realized that the level at which I felt something in a song, other people would feel it. The level at which I didn't, they wouldn't. But if I could really feel something, people seemed to really gravitate towards it. And it created a connection. And that's really the foundation of what I talk about today, being able to feel so others can feel, form those connections and those friendships. And those friendships are valuable.
Is that what you just said? Is that what continued to drive you in the music industry today, those relationships you're building?
It is. It is. I found such a joy in feeling. I'm an emotional guy. I was when I was young, and I am today. I mean, I lean into emotion. I have to be able to create a lot of the stories that I create and the songs. I just had a number one about 5 weeks ago with a song called "She's Somebody's Daughter." She's somebody's daughter. She's somebody's baby. A huge song, over 1 billion streams on TikTok alone, and that's just me feeling my love for my daughter, and just imagining one day her husband. My daughter is 8. Is that right? 7. Sorry, and getting ready to be 8. But I just imagine her meeting a guy like I used to be when I was in my early 20s, and me just wanting to remind that dude, hey, she's somebody's daughter. Before you date her, before you just remember, she's somebody's baby. I loved her way before you think you love her. So just but really feeling that, and then that the artist felt that, Drew Baldridge, and he wanted to finish writing it with me, and we did. And then millions of people all over the world felt that too, simply because I told my story, and that's the power of our story.
Well, I remember the first time I listened to it. I have 2 daughters, and absolutely got almost truly some emotional thinking about your daughter and getting her married and everything.
Yeah.
And so
Yes.
everybody can take those words and put it in your own perspective. And I definitely got emotional for that one for sure. I have 2 daughters, one left to be married, hopefully sooner than later. Jacob, if you're listening to this, think about that.
So I love that though, but I love that you were affected by that and moved by that. And that's why I do what I do. I mean, it blows my mind that people can be moved by what I'm moved by, and that's the fuel that drives me every day.
Yeah, that's great. So according to your website, I mean, you've written over 2,000 songs. Maybe it's more since then. I mean, maybe,
Yeah.
but over 2,000, that's a lot. Many that you've had featured on albums, selling millions of copies. You got
Hmm.
Grammy winners, Gold and Platinum Award winners. You said 14 have been number one. Is it still at 14 or has that changed? Still 14 is
Yeah, you know what? It's now 17. So
17. So you got to update your website. So
who's
17 of your
who?
songs have been certified number one on Billboard
Yeah,
magazine. You got a
correct.
CMA and ACM for your song of the year that's called I Drive Your Truck. That's
I drive a truck. Yeah,
Lee Bryce.
yeah.
Your most recent was not I Called Mom that we mentioned. You also have the one you just talked about,
Yeah,
She's
well, it was.
Somebody's Daughter.
Yeah, actually, yeah. So yeah. So I called mom, but yeah. So somebody's daughter. She's somebody's daughter was the most recent. So yeah, I've got to update my website, don't I? Come on, Jimmy.
But
But yeah. Just
it's just, I mean, it's incredible stats and accomplishment. And there's so many people who don't know the who behind the song, the
sure.
songwriters. They just, they a lot of times don't get the recognition, obviously, that the singer does.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that? How do you reflect over one, all that you've done? You like singing, clearly, I can tell you just listening to you. You're a singer maybe first, and now a
Right.
songwriter second. Well, now a
Right.
songwriter first. But
Right.
how do you
That's right.
reflect on that change? And how can you have to be more humbled as a songwriter, I think, than a singer.
Yeah, you do. You do. It's your ego has a way of getting squashed
Yeah,
in this town. It gets squashed, as you know, as we get older. Certainly, we hopefully
yeah,
become more wise, and we make mistakes and we learn from them. And you also find out that ego, feeding that ego, isn't that valuable anymore. And I used to want my mama and people just to know who I was. That drives you a lot of times, as well as the music and creating it. And it's fun being on stage. And I
yeah,
have been an artist and played shows and done all that and played fanfare and had singles that didn't come to fruition as hits. But as an artist, I've experienced, as a single artist, certainly I was out with Shenandoah for years and but just there's something really awesome about being able to create songs, have them go out, touch lives, be walking through a Walmart and hear your song up there and see people humming along to it and just know that you're affecting
yeah.
lives in everyday America and all over the world. It's just it's a neat thing. And walking to the mailbox is kind of fun too every once in a while, you know. And
I would bet. Has
yeah.
there been opportunities and times when the songwriter, the singers who have, have they brought you on stage? Like I know I've watched so many just videos of songs and whatever, and there's been plenty of times you watch them where a songwriter or a singer will say, "I'm going to bring Jimmy Yeary on stage and sing with me. He's the one who created this song." Has that happened with you?
Yeah, that's happened with Lee Bryce, of course, and Jake Owen had me come out on stage with him for a song called "Anywhere with You." I'll go anywhere, West Virginia, baby, I don't care. Mexico on a wild hair. You ever seen California? To sing with him. Chesney's had me on stage with him before, with "Everything's Gonna Be All Right." He and David Lee Murphy had that song out. And yeah, that's always an amazing feeling to get out there and to see the crowds and feel that energy. And yeah, Rascal Flats. I've had a Why Wait was the number one I had with them, but I've had like 7 or 8 recordings by those guys. They've been friends for years and actually helped start my writing career. Really, they were the ones that were instrumental in I was backstage playing guitar for an artist, and I was just getting into trying to build up the songwriting portion of my career. And then a road manager came to me backstage at a Brooks and Dunn concert where Rascal Flatts was headlining with Brooks and Dunn. I'd never met the guys. I'm relatively young, and a guy comes up and says, "Hey, Gary LaVox of the Boys, Rascal Flatts want to meet you." And I was like, "What?" And so they come get me. I get on the bus. Come to find out, they know all these songs. They'd reached out to a publishing company I was with and gotten a lot of my songs, and they were about to record them, and I didn't even know it. So that was probably about 17 years ago. And that's
Hmm.
kind of what got the ball rolling as a songwriter. And it just took off from there.
So do you have a favorite song you've written?
Yeah. Yeah, probably, not that you've heard. There are songs that you haven't heard yet, that I believe will, ultimately be recorded. Of the ones that maybe people are familiar with, I would say that it is "I Called Mama."
Yeah.
That's just for me. It's a really, there's a healing element with singing songs like that. Again, every time I sing that song, it's emotional. I feel gratitude, and I can't sing it that I don't want to actually call my mama and
Yeah.
talk to her. So she's alive today. She's having some health issues and what have you, but I'm grateful that I have a mama I can call. And I have a song right now that is unfinished that I'll just tell you that I'm writing for my mom called Phone Call Away. And so, and the concept is, she is a phone call away right now, but I know one day it's going to break my heart when one day she isn't a phone call away. And so it's going to be an emotional song,
Yeah.
but it's something that feeds my soul, and I hopefully will feed other people's souls
Yeah.
as
And,
well.
as you're talking, I'm just thinking my mom's been gone for over 5 years, and I think of her every day. I have a plant in my office that somebody gave me at the funeral and I can't keep plants alive. And this plant is alive. I mean, it's crazy. And I think of my mom every day when I come into work, and I think of that. I still have her in my phone. I still have her number in my phone. So there's times when I'll look up my son's number and my mom's name will pop up in there. And so I think about calling her. I used to call her all the time, or she called me. And so, yeah, those are things that absolutely are emotional. There's so many people, right?
And and Chuck, that's the thing is I can sing that song or I can talk about that song, and you suddenly start telling me your story.
Yep.
And that's something that doesn't happen in everyday life. But you and I have more of a connection right now than we had 2 minutes ago, whether you realize it or not. And that connection is extremely valuable because I want to help you now. You want to help me now. If you could, and I'm somewhere with a flat tire, you're gonna go out of your way to help me. You're gonna, friends help friends in and out of our business, and it's really powerful. And that's the power of our story. And again, that's what I love to teach people, how to utilize and talk about the techniques, simple techniques that we all know that we don't know we know a lot of times, to be able to utilize their own stories to connect with others.
Yeah, well, you're touching on, those heartstrings of my daughter, my mother. I know you've had songs of, obviously your wife. I think of I think is one of them that I know that Tim McGraw sang that of yours. It's that you talked about your wife, but it was, it connected with him because of his wife. And I mean, again, those are all pieces that those emotions. So, you're married, you got 3 kids. Yes. Speaking of wives, your wife, Sonia Isaacs, I mean, she's also a musician. She's got a solo music career. She's been part of the Isaacs, obviously. I mean, it's got to be just constant music at your house.
It is constant music, and it's a way of life that I don't really know any other way of life. And the kids certainly are very, all kids tend to be brilliant. They're smart. They have so much that they're able to utilize to learn. But the kids are truly, there is an innate sort of handed down ability they sing really well. We leave nearly any conceivable instrument out. So pianos, guitars, basses, mandolins, banjos, all these things that they can gravitate to and learn how to play. My son plays wonderful drums at 13. He'll be ready to go out and play with the Isaacs probably this time next year. Plays amazing guitar, really well versed on guitar, and the other 2 kids are just practicing instruments. And it's that becomes a little bit of their video games. Kids can, I let them play their Fortnites, and all that stuff. But I do tell, I make sure it's a requirement that you have to put so much time in on these instruments. And at first it might be a lot of times like, I don't want to do that. But once they do it, then they don't want to not do it. And so it's just nudging them there. And then the more you learn, the more addicted you get to the learning of any specific thing. So that tends to be what is happening with them.
I can only imagine. I'm thinking what your oldest son is Aiden. He's like 13. You said is Gatlin is your middle son? And then
Yes, that's correct.
Is it Eva? Is your daughter?
Evia, we call her
Evia.
Evie. Evie, yeah,
Evie.
right, Evia. Yes.
Evie. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking of, I know when I'm in my car with my daughter and wife and my 3 grandkids, I mean, we're singing, right? We got something on the radio and we're all singing.
Right.
Probably not as good as you're singing, but what's it like in the car? The Yeary car, when is the whole family singing? Are you playing your music? Are you just popping on a country music song and everybody knows it?
Yeah, to some extent. There are certain songs that they love and what have you, but the kids have a natural ability to sing harmony, and harmony is tricky for most people. They tend to know it very well. My wife and I both grew up gravitating towards singing harmony, and so we've instilled that and we've taught that to them, but didn't have to do much teaching. They do 3-part harmony in the car together on certain songs. They really do. It's pretty astounding. People would be shocked at their, again, we hate to brag on our kids. All kids are brilliant in certain areas. Musically, they've definitely got the musical gene, and it's fun to watch and to be able to feed that, because my parents didn't feed my musical desire, really. I grew up singing and music with my family, the Yeary family, singing gospel, country, bluegrassy stuff. We'd sing in churches and da-da-da-da. But there was really never an understanding of what that talent was and how to grow and foster that talent that I had, that I felt like I had, but nobody was around me going, "Hey, learn this. Hey, you're great. Hey, how do you do that? Hey, that's exceptional right there." Most people don't do that. Most people aren't writing songs at 12 years old, 13 years old that sound like that. I kind of had to gain that confidence again by seeing people's reactions to the emotions I was feeling.
Yes, it's amazing. God gives us all talents. Some of it's sport, some of it's intelligence, some of it's music, but everybody has talents.
Yes.
So, cool.
But we all have a story. And so that's what's fun, is helping everybody. It don't matter who you are. You may think you just are no good at telling stories. I hear that all the time. I'm not good at telling stories. I disagree. You just don't know how. You don't know that you know how to tell a story. And I like to show people how it is they tell a story. And once I show them, then they go, "Oh, well, I can leave here and do this right now."
Well, that ties us right back to our story and why you're with us.
Yeah.
That we've talked about you being the keynote at our conference in February of 2025. And, I'm sure you've done a lot of unique events for a lot of different industries.
Yeah.
Our attendees, they wonder why you're a keynote. So let's kind of talk about some script stuff here now with you. You speak about how this is going to pertain to safety. And I'm sure that's one of the pieces, saying, okay, how are you thinking about crafting this message and linking your specialty to our attendees and our types, and how you're going to tie in your talent to the theme of our conference, which basically is safety and bringing people home to their families safely, every night from work.
Well, again, that requires great communication. It requires trust to relay that safety information to one another. And I'm going to talk about, again, how to feel so others can feel by utilizing your story. But, we all have this. What I love to talk about is to form that trust, to be able to have great communication and form those relationships. We all have an intrinsic need not to feel alone. This is how I write my songs. This is how I tell my stories. And this is how I form my relationships. We all have this need to feel like, hey, that's me. I've been there. I've done that. I've gone through that. I've experienced that. And when you give someone that gift, you create a trust. You form a connection and you form a friendship. And friends help friends. Friends trust friends. Friends listen to friends. So for the purposes of networking, for the purposes of making those connections with people you normally wouldn't feel like you're able to connect with, to help people understand the value of vulnerability in connecting with others, and for the purposes of selling ideas and selling yourself, to form those connections, to be able to communicate most effectively and efficiently. That's really what I'll be talking about, but I'll be doing it in a fun way. I'll be setting up these techniques with how I utilize these stories to connect with the Tim McGraws, the Chesneys, and the George Straits of the world. And then ultimately, and we'll sing some songs that people have heard, no doubt, if they listen to music much at all. And then we'll, at the about the last 25 minutes, I may, if time allows, I may try to really showcase everyone, the value of everyone's story by going around and trying to maybe write a song with the crowd. So that's always a pretty incredible experience. And people just like, there's no way you can do that in 20, 25 minutes, but I can. And I'm going to once I show them how to utilize their story, then it becomes quite easy. And so it's going to be fun. It blows my mind every time that it happens as well. But yeah, it's all about trust and communication and being able to communicate with each other efficiently and effectively and forming those relationships, those valuable relationships, even with people you already know, going deeper in those relationships and forming those new valuable relationships.
Yeah. To kind of close things off here, safety is about trust. It is about communication. It totally ties that in. So that absolutely is the piece that people are going to come in to understand, that they're going to take that away and understand that communicating to people and having the people at work trust you and your company in terms of what they're doing and how much they value you as a person and your family. Yes. So I can't wait. This has the makings of being one of the best keynotes ever, Jimmy. So we're extremely excited. And so can't wait to talk more to you and see you on February 25th. I guess you'll be there the 24th, hopefully, the day before. Help do a little bit of walkthrough, do some stuff, hopefully get a chance to meet you in person and do some conversations there. So
absolutely.
Lastly, are you ready for the little thing we started? It's called Talk Safety to Me, Would You Rather quiz. Are you ready?
No, go ahead.
But go anyway. So would you rather lose your singing skills or lose your writing skills?
I would rather lose my writing skills because I'd be pretty brokenhearted if I couldn't continue to sing, and I would just sing what I've already written. I have enough songs to where that'll last me till I leave this earth. Yeah.
Yeah, but we can't wait. We can't wait to see your writing skills, and we won't prompt you to make you write a song about me and the Safety Council in the 35 minutes we've been talking yet. We won't put you on prompt to do that, but we can't wait to hear you and the song you're going to write. And I know you've been generous enough to be talking about a guitar that you're going to be able to give us and use it at silent auction. I mean, maybe you can even tickle that for us a little bit in terms of what you're going to be doing with that.
Well, listen, I'm just going to, I'll be playing this guitar during the performance, and yeah, this is a song, a guitar that I'll be performing these hit songs on, and then at the end of it, I will be giving this guitar away. So we'll see what that looks like, but it's always a treat to be able to do that. Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you doing that and get back to us that way too. So thanks to our incredible guest today, Jimmy Yeary. We appreciate your time and all the emotion that you've given. I mean, hell, I'm going to hang up with this with some emotion. I'm going to go listen to your songs. I'm going to call my daughter. Can't call my mom. I'm going to call my daughter or one or both of them. And it's just one of the more fun topics we've discussed. Our 52nd Annual Safety and Health Conference is on February 24th to the 27th. It's going to be at the Bismarck Event Center. We're going to continue to have more information about a conference coming soon. There's lots of stuff that's going to start going out. Registration's going to open on December 2nd. At www.ndsc.org. And that's all for Talk Safety to Me with the North Dakota Safety Council. Thank you to Jimmy. Thank you to Tia for our producing. And we'll have more episodes dropping soon. So stay connected and more importantly, stay safe out there. Thanks, Jimmy.
Thank you, Chuck.
Thanks for listening to Talk Safety to Me, a podcast for the North Dakota Safety Council recorded at the Radio Access Studio in Bismarck, North Dakota. Find our podcast, Safety Training Options, information about our annual conference, and more at ndsc.org. You also can listen to Talk Safety to Me on 102.5 FM and online at radioaccess.org.